For today's headlines, 240 billion pesos COVID budget for 2022. Metro Manila, Laguna, Bataan revert to modified enhanced community quarantine. Philippines receives 3 million more doses of Sinovac Covid-19 vaccine. Palace tells Department of Health bashers to chill. Philippine-Australia Logistics Accord to help enhance militaries' interoperability, DND. In Daily Tribune's Explainer report, what went wrong in Afghanistan? Taliban's trump card. Good morning, I am Venice Bautista and you are watching Tribune News on Q. Today is August 20, 2021, and here are the latest news of this Friday morning. President Rodrigo Duterte is seeking the approval of a 240.7 pesos billion budget for the country's pandemic response next year, of which 45.3 billion pesos shall be used in procuring COVID-19 booster shots. In a televised briefing Thursday, Presidential Spokesperson Secretary Harry Roque outlined the items under the proposed budget to address the health crisis. Based on his presentation, the Executive Department put the 45.3 billion peso budget for anti-coronavirus booster jabs under unprogrammed appropriations, which means that it would only be funded if government has enough money. While experts have yet to complete their studies on the efficacy of booster jabs, Roque said the government has allocated funds for it to strengthen the country's inoculation drive. The Department of Health also announced on Thursday that it was open to procuring more COVID-19 vaccine doses as potential booster shots, but said it will first wait for a firm recommendation from local experts. The Philippine government has fully vaccinated 12.87 million individuals against COVID-19, while 16.25 million people are still waiting for their second doses, the latest government data showed. Under the government's spending plan, the social services sector would get the biggest amount with 1.922 trillion pesos, which accounted for 38% of the entire expenditure program as the Philippines continues to grapple with the coronavirus pandemic. The proposed 2022 national budget will be submitted to Congress on Monday. Metro Manila and the provinces of Laguna and Bataan would be downgraded to modified enhanced community quarantine in the second half of August, Malacanang announced Thursday. The capital region and Laguna would shift from ECQ to the less restrictive lockdown status starting Friday, while Bataan would return to such quarantine classification beginning Monday. Under modified ECQ in the said areas, establishments offering al fresco dining and personal care services such as restaurants, beauty salons, barbershops, and nail spas remain prohibited. Religious gatherings would also remain virtual in the Metro Manila, Laguna, and Bataan. Earlier in the day, the palace official said the government would weigh in on whether the three areas should remain under ECQ or be downgraded to modified ECQ. Among the considerations were the government's ability to provide cash aid, COVID-19 reproduction numbers, and healthcare utilization rates, Roque said. The national government spent some 14.67 billion pesos worth of financial assistance to low-income families affected by ECQ in the said areas. Under ECQ, residents must stay at home, except when obtaining essential supplies and reporting for work in permitted offices or establishments, including those involved in healthcare, food manufacturing, and delivery services. The same applies under modified ECQ, a more relaxed lockdown status, but additional manufacturing and processing plants were allowed to operate at 50% capacity. Public transportation was both limited in ECQ and modified ECQ. The Philippines on Thursday welcomed the arrival of government-procured 3 million more doses of COVID-19 vaccine from Chinese vaccine maker Sinovac BioNTech. The National Task Force Against COVID-19, or NTF, dubbed the latest batch of COVID-19 vaccines as the biggest single-day vaccine shipment. NTF Chief Implementer and Vaccine Czar Carlito Galvez Jr. welcomed the arrival of fresh vaccine supply, which will serve as a major boost for the national inoculation program. Galvez said this is part of the 26 million doses of government-procured vaccine from Sinovac. So far, the country has received a total of 45,940,390 doses of different vaccine brands. Tribune News on Q will be back after these reminders.
Manong Joe po.
At Ate Maita.
Ngayong Hunyo, bahagyang tumaas ng 8 centavos per kilowatt hour ang overall electricity rates. Ito'y dahil sa dagdag singil sa WESM.
Alam niyo ba, pwede kayong i-update na Meralco sa text or sa email gaya ni Sarah G. Sisendan kayo ng advanced updates tulad ng upcoming bill details. Di na kayo kakaba-kaba sa paghihintay ng bills. At anumang mangyari sa bill, masira, mabasa, o mawala, no problem. To get updates, i-update ang inyong contact information sa Facebook Messenger, meralco.com.ph, email, hotline 16211 o Meralco Business Centers.
Handa kaming makipag-ugnayan sa inyo para makapaghatid ng mas mabuti, mabilis, at pagkinhawang serbisyo.
Hanggang sa susunod na
Meralco Advisory.
We are back on Tribune News on Q. And in other news, Malacanang on Thursday appealed to the public to be cool on audit reports that flagged the budget handling of various agencies as it instructed concerned officials to submit detailed answers on questions raised against them. Presidential spokesperson Secretary Harry Roque said Filipinos should not be quick to condemn government offices under scrutiny, saying they should be given the chance to clarify the findings of the Commission on Audit. Several agencies, including the Departments of Health, Education, Labor, Foreign Affairs, Social Welfare, Interior, and Energy, as well as the Overseas Workers Welfare Administration, Philippine National Police, Philippine Ports Authority, and People's Television Network, have been called out by the COA over their respective fund utilizations. The reports made available online contain 2020 listing opinions and observations which supposedly present non-compliance of government agencies with laws and regulations on the use of public funds. However, the Constitutional Commission, an independent body from the executive branch, did not conclude that money was lost to corruption pending explanations from concerned offices. For Malacanang, the said government agencies should swiftly submit the necessary documents to address the issues raised by public auditors. DOH data showed that between September 2020 and June 2021, the agency has released nearly 15 billion pesos in allowance and monetary benefits for 1.2 million medical workers. The delayed disbursement and decreasing morale of healthcare workers prompted them to warn of a mass resignation if the neglect continues. Lawmakers raised alarm regarding the dreaded scenario, with one warning of a possible collapse of the country's already fragile healthcare system if they continued. The DOH, Drilon said, received a total of 77 billion pesos in budget allocation to fund its COVID-19 response programs, but over 25 billion pesos, or 31% of its remains unobligated. Some 900 million pesos for benefits were also left unspent. Defense Secretary Delfin Lorenzana on Thursday said the Mutual Logistics Support Arrangement, or MLSA, between the Philippines and Australia will help enhance the interoperability of the two countries' military forces. It will also facilitate rapid deployment of both the armed forces of the Philippines and the Australian Defense Force for humanitarian assistance and disaster response, he said. The MLSA is intended to enhance the interoperability between the AFP and ADF, which regularly conduct exercises under the Philippines-Australia Defense Cooperation and the Status of Visiting Force Agreement. Arsenio Andolong, DND spokesman, said the MLSA was signed by the Philippines on February 18 and Australia on April 23. It will be endorsed by the DND to the Department of Foreign Affairs, and the latter will transmit it to the Office of the President for ratification, he said. Lorenzana and Andolong made the remarks after the Australian Embassy announced that the MLSA has been finalized. Australian Ambassador Stephen Robinson would allow the two countries to conduct more complex engagement amid a rapidly evolving strategic environment. Tribune News on Q will be back. Stay with us.
This public service advisory is brought to you by Daily Tribune and 100.3 RJFM.
Oh, vaccination, isolation. Gotta keep up with my nutrition. Gotta maintain my body condition. Then I can take my vaccination. What do I choose? What do I take? As long as it is not a fake. AstraZeneca, Moderna, BioNTech, even Sinovac, okay na. Babakuna ka ba? 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 Vaccination for the nation, no more isolation. With vaccination, babakuna ka ba? 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 Paturok, paturok, paturok.
This public service advisory is brought to you by Daily Tribune and 100.3 RJFM.
Centers, pati sa mga partners may online pa at app. You can buy it with your fingers. Still phone remittance and more. Online shopping, you can buy it all. Di magpadala, you can buy it all. Anumang pera transaction, you can buy it all.
Sabayan ang pagbabago ng mundo for all your pera transactions, all new Bayan.
You are back in Tribune News on Q. In other news, what went wrong in Afghanistan? In this special report by the Daily Tribune, please watch. How did the Taliban capture Afghanistan in 10 days? The most apparent answers: corruption and unwillingness to fight for their country. Add low morale to the mixture with the eventual pullout of U.S. troops by September, and you have a perfect formula to abrupt capitulation. Afghanistan is U.S.'s longest war. The U.S. and its allies spent over $2 trillion in its 20-year war in Afghanistan, including $88.3 billion to train and equip the Afghan security forces from May 2002 to March. Since 2001, the U.S. taxpayers allocated nearly $1 trillion to the Overseas Contingency Operations budget for the Department of Defense, $530 billion on interest payment on the money borrowed for the war, and another $144 billion was appropriated to the Afghan reconstruction. With the billions of dollars for training and equipment, it is pretty shocking that Afghan troops lack ammunition and supplies on the battlefield. Worse, the number of security personnel is bloated by ground commanders to pocket the payroll. Quickly gaining momentum from its almost bloodless victory in other Afghan cities, the advance of Taliban to Kabul wasn't even met with resistance when President Ashraf Ghani fled the scene. The Taliban is forming an inclusive Islamic government and reconciling with factions, assuring Afghans of security and peace by enforcing their version of Islamic law. But why are people desperately fleeing? Many fear the rule would reimpose the Taliban's violence and oppression the country had seen before the U.S. came in from 1996 to 2001. Many are even worried the deteriorating situation would see the Taliban exacting revenge on Americans and the government. Here's another exclusive explainer report about Taliban's trump card.
In 2020, the United States signed a peace deal with the Taliban. It addresses 4 issues: a ceasefire, withdrawal of foreign forces, reduction of violence, starting intra-Afghan negotiations, and that Afghanistan would never again coddle terrorists. The deal is only a first in a series of steps seen to achieve lasting peace in the region, a country torn by war that killed 157,000 people and cost the United States more than $2 trillion. The American invaded the country in retaliation for the 9/11 attacks that killed more than 3,000 Americans. The attacks were carried out by the Osama bin Laden-led terror group Al-Qaeda, which used Afghanistan as their base of operations. Since the signing of the peace deal, the Taliban had softened its aggression against American and coalition forces, save for rocket attacks and U.S. bases in July and August. The Taliban has redirected its resources to attacking Afghan forces instead. Moreover, despite its pledges to fight terrorism, the Taliban was discovered to be still closely tied to Al-Qaeda when Afghan forces killed the leader of the terrorist group. Also, instead of negotiating a power-sharing deal, a military takeover of its government. Other than Donald Trump, former President Barack Obama also ordered the withdrawal of U.S. troops in Afghanistan in 2014. President Biden's followed through Trump's plan, contemplating a smaller footprint, a skeptic of U.S. continued presence in Afghanistan. In these times of crisis, how will the world adjust? When we are all left asking, Afghanistan, what is happening? This has been Michelle Gilliang for Daily Tribune.
And that wraps up the stories this morning. Before we go, we would like to thank the SM Store, the Department of Tourism, Araneta Center, MG Motors, Hina Motors, Security Bank, and Overseas Community Affairs Council member Alan Lin of Republic of China for their continued support. Again, this is Venice Bautista, and you are watching Tribune News on Q. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay at home. Good morning.
Catch the latest news on our website tribune.net.ph and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel, Tribune Now. The Daily Tribune is one with the nation in facing the COVID-19 crisis, and in line with this, the Daily Tribune digital edition and press reader is now available for free online. You can also download the Daily Tribune app on Apple Store for iOS users and Google Play for Android users to get the latest and most comprehensive news online. Daily Tribune is also inviting everyone to join its Community Viber Katribu to get updates on the freshest and hottest news and entertainment stories of the day. Tarcito emoticons are also available on our Community Viber. Just click on the link in this video to join.